Let's discuss Earth as a simulation and what that actually means. In my videos, I have gone into depth explaining the simulation that we live in called Earth and how that came to be. If you have not had a chance to watch my series, The Bible Decoded, as well as how to build an earth, I highly suggest you go back and watch those videos so you can get more context as to how the entire process of Earth was formed. I'm not going to get into that part of it, but I will gloss over it so that we can come to a full understanding of the how and why we are here, and how Earth as a simulation is nothing but a mathematical formula being played out in matter-based bodies. In the beginning, you had the triple darkness of outer space. For this purpose, we're going to call it black goo or black moo because it's a mother energy or a cow energy. And basically, this black dark void or primordial waters of outer space that they call Tiamat is comprised of melanin. All of the elements from the periodic table of elements exist within this dark goo. It is a very condensed form of electromagnetic frequency or wavelengths. It's basically all of light collapsed into darkness, meaning that it is light, but it's all of the colors of the spectrum coming to rest in one particular place. Now, this particular goo or moo has all of the periodic table of elements, and they are in their rested state. They are not engaging with anything or interacting with anything to come to fruition. So you want to think of this black moo as the motherboard or the black screen, just like if you have the internet and there's no code preceding it. It's basically blank. It's the source of all things. Everything that you see within this Earth simulation, once it was opened up, is a part of that black moo or that black goo substance. However, in its original form, it's nothing but light. And light is frequency or wavelengths, and it's nothing but darkness. It's basically the place where light goes to rest, if that makes sense. It's everything and nothing at the same time. It is the cosmic womb space. So when the Earth simulation was created by this mother goddess, she was basically opening up a simulation to erect the one in the equation. In order for her to solve the equation of male or the masculine, she had to open up the simulation, which was allow the negative or the subtraction or the sin basically to engage in a mathematical equation that created the masculine male. So the mother entity that exists within this black goo or moo, she is pure light. She's not a physical being. She is a light being, and she is the one who opened up the simulation to solve the masculine equation or to birth her other half. And this simulation is an experiment or a mathematical equation for the masculine, which is why the Bible has the Adam and Eve story. And Eve comes in as a helpmate because she is the original mother energy or goddess energy. And the Adam is actually who this experiment is for. He is the one that's supposed to take the journey to find himself back full circle to the mother, or have a 360-degree experience to come back full circle to himself, which is the mother energy or the full 360-degree circle of the egg or the mother. So what she did in essence was she opened up the Earth simulation for her masculine counterpart, which is something that she spawned from herself using the mathematics of the negative. Sin, S-I-N, is actually S-Y-N, tax, which is the syntax errors or negative errors. When you talk about sin, you're talking about negative or subtraction. So she basically subtracted herself in order to erect the point or the 0 point by using the formula -0 minus -1 equals +1. This is how she birthed the masculine, and she did so by two polar magnets that pulled apart to create a paramagnetic bubble, which is what caused all of the elements from the black goo to begin engaging with oxygen and creating everything that you see in the earth realm. To visually see how this works, you have the black goo and you have all of the elements. That's one part of it. But we're talking about multidimensional thinking. So we're thinking in a mathematical sense. We're thinking in a material sense as well as a motherly and fatherly sense, or a masculine and feminine, negative and positive polarity. All of this is centering around the mathematics of everything that is in existence. So you have a full circle, which is 360 degrees, okay? And 3 + 6 is 9. There's a line that connects that circle, and that line in and of itself is the masculine energy. But in order for you to erect this masculine energy, you have to open up an earth realm so that you can have that 0 point within the middle of the cross section, which is the 4 quadrant section, be erected so you can create the masculine polarity and solve the equation of the masculine. So once the earth was resurrected and you had this one energy that was birthed, which was the masculine, the feminine was there also, which is the circle. She is everything. She is the black goo or the moo. And the one is all of the energy that was created from the air or the oxygen that was formed within the paramagnetic bubble. Once all of the elements from this water or this black goo began to engage with the oxygen within the paramagnetic bubble, meaning that she took two polar opposite magnets that represent the negative and the positive, the north and the south polarity, which in turn opened up the earth realm so that she could erect this phallic energy. And once it started engaging with the oxygen, which is air, that's when you got all of the engagement of the elements. Gold became gold, and it all started to engage with this. It all started to engage with this oxygen, which created the dome, which created everything that you see in existence. The trees, everything is the black goo or mu. This feminine goddess, who we call Venus, Ishtar, Inanna, the great divine mother, once she erected the earth energy and created her avatar, which is the feminine body that she was injected into the space, because she herself exists outside of the space as a being of light. She had to map out her math within the light grid in order to erect herself or place her avatar within the game, as well as her masculine energy, which is where you get the Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. This was an experiment to see or to learn more about the masculine portion of herself, and to see if he could, as that line of the circle, come Ouroboros or full circle to the end, which is the snake eating its tail. Okay. And that was his journey to find himself back to his feminine counterpart. The sun, everything that you see is a part of that triple darkness of outer space. And it is all wavelength, which is why you see colors, which is why you see rainbows. It is all the wavelength stretched out and made to form these different things once they started to scientifically engage with the oxygen in the bubble. So this is what you call the simulation, because everything is wavelength, frequency on a quantum level trapped within matter. The matter itself is just the encasing, or this frequency encasing that encases our light bodies. And we are angles of light. We are all fractal light, having a fractal mathematical experience. Being that we are all fractal light, that means that the original energy of the masculine and feminine polarity still exists here in the realm, encased in matter, and it's just been traveling throughout time, reincarnating through the moon machine. And this masculine and feminine energy are the ones who are to end this particular cycle when we come Ouroboros within the circle, or the full circle of our experience within time, because time is a construct, as I have explained in my other videos, because of the way that the earth simulation is set up, and it moves, okay, because of the vortex that spins and makes the sun move and go into an 8 rotation, and everything is moving. The star system is moving because it's a simulation of time. It is borrowed time from the eternity or the eternal of outer space, which is everything and all things and no time. It is simply present. It is simply time collapsed into nothingness. Once the equation was open and the masculine was set on his journey to find himself, they began to be fruitful and multiply, which means they would birth new light beings into the realm, which is everyone else. And they would do so using the womb and the phallic mathematics, which is two inverted pyramids, or the if of congruency, which is the law of two triangles, basically, as demonstrated in this diagram, and sexual intercourse, which produces new beings through the irrational number of pi, which is 3.14. This is how these two beings split themselves so that they could begin the mathematical equation of solving for the masculine. So the masculine was supposed to go through this earth school and experience all the highs and lows of the sin or syntax errors of the light body, the negatives and the positives, in order to find himself again. In Egyptian mythology, it's explained as the Osiris. And Osiris simply means the OS iris, or the operating system of the iris, which is talking about the third eye. It's talking about fractal light and being able to see it with this third eye that acts as a light prism or a kaleidoscope that has a chopped up body. And everything that was fractalized once this earth realm was opened up is basically everything that you see. It's the animals, it's the parasites, it's the trees, it's everything. Is all fractal light chopped up into different bodies. This is the Osiris, which is the fiction or the folklore about Osiris's body being chopped up by Set. Set would represent this chopped up body of light. And this is where you get Set's suits on suits, which is soot or carbon, basically. And that formula is 666, which is 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, which is melanin, which is carbon and the basic building blocks of all existence. It is the melanin from the waters of the dark primordial waters of outer space. And it is the matter that encases everything in existence. So Set which is set on, or Satan, is this fractalized light chopped up into various bodies, okay? And when you talk about Satan, or the synagogue of Satan, or the church of Satan, you're talking about the people who have taken the time to find this fractalized light, or these different bodies of light or angles of light, so that they can use and manipulate the parts of the Osiris or the light for their benefit. As the folklore goes, Isis is the one that resurrects the body of Osiris. She puts him back together. She finds all the missing pieces. And how she does so is by crawling this extensive web of math and looking into the fractal light, which we call the fallen angels, but it's really the fallen angles of light. That is what that means. It's fractalized light within various bodies spread out throughout the earth realm, which is the Osiris. It's all a part of the light. However, it is fractal light, or portions of the God energy fractalized into different bodies, and each of those bodies have their own light angles. Okay, so when you talk about the fallen angels, you're talking about the fallen angles that fell into matter, and they are all a part of the whole equation, just in various amalgamated forms. This is what demons or jinn spirits are. They are nothing more than fractal light chopped up into various bodies. They could be within a bug, they could be within a fly, they could be within a cockroach. They are basically the fractalized light split into different bodies. However, within those matter-based bodies, they do have light energy, which is the frequency that they contain, or the soul, or whatever the energy it is that they are. So that particular energy is what they use within the Church of Set by taking the angles. Okay, this is why you look at books like the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon that have these sigils that are drawn out with a circle, and it has all of these varied light angles or degrees of light that draw out the light body of the fractal light from these different parts or portions of the body of Osiris, which is the full light, or the mother's body. Which is why when you read books like the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon, you see that when they're conjuring or doing these magical rites, the demons tend to show up with amalgamated body parts. They'll have wings, they'll have horse bottom and man upper half, or they'll look like a frog, or whatever the case may be, is because they are portions of light. They are not the full light spectrum. So they have good parts of them and bad parts of them. However, they are the fractalized light of the mother goddess energy, or the whole circle, basically chopped up into various parts when we fell into matter. This is what all the folklore is about. There's a scientific, mathematical, and a spiritual, or a light explanation for everything. And it's all about a math equation to solve for the masculine, which is what this entire earth realm was about. It is for her to figure out her masculine counterpart. The principal demon of this particular simulation is Baal, which is an entity that governs 66 legions. Now, the number 66 is very crucial because 6 and 6 equals 12, which also equals 1 plus 2 equals 3. And 3 is the Isis, which is basically a triangle, which is a representation of the womb space of 3 points. 3 is her crown, or her throne that sits on her head. You see Isis is wearing a staircase on the top of her head, because that staircase of 3 steps represent your journey in and out of existence. So it's 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Your death and your rebirth comes through the triangular experience of the womb space in order for you to be born again, or for you to come back into existence. This is what the throne of Isis represents. And this is why she wears it on her head, because it's the crown of 12 stars. Baal, in and of himself, herself, is basically the intersection, or the intersex of the mother. It is the 0 point, or the point at the middle of the circle where the phallic energy exists, as well as the feminine energy, because it is both. This is why you call it the intersection. You have a circle, then you have a cross, okay? And this cross is your religion. This crossroads is where they say people go to make a deal with the devil. It is the intersection, or the intersexuality, that exists within this midpoint, which is the demon Baal, okay? And that's why it governs 66 legions, is because it is also the point of everything that exists within this earth realm. And it is the masculine and feminine portion of the divine mother, or the 360-degree circle. So think about this crossroads as basically the intersection between that circle. It is also what holds up the circle and keeps everything intact. However, it's like the pin in the middle. It's a very narrow point that anchors the center. And when you talk about being nailed to the cross, this is what it means. The nail is actually the center point where the actual womb space was nailed to the cross, okay? And this is where you get all of the Thelemic religion about Awas. This particular demon goes by many names, but what you do need to know is that it's an intersex being that is beyond the duality, or It is both masculine and feminine because it's at the point, but it also has the circle of the womb. So it is both masculine, the point, which is the phallic, and it is both feminine as well. And it's at the crossroads or the center point of the circle. If you have not had a chance, I have already did a full comprehensive deep dive and breakdown into this particular entity and did like an accounting basically of all the mathematics that was done within this earth simulation in order to find what this anti-energy, or what I would call the Antichrist, because the Christ is the feminine or the divine feminine, which is the full circle, and it's also comprised of the masculine, which is the one phallus, not a dual being. Okay, and you have men who were in earth school that were seeking themselves, but instead of them going through the full Ouroboros and following the mother, they selfishly began to venture into the center point to find the intersection or the crossroads or the devil, which we will get into. And within that particular point of circle, they began to resurrect a god for themselves. And this is where we get to this point of the story with man. So think about all of your religions and how they're male-centered and how they're all saying he, him, and no one is saying she. It's more about a Shem, or it's more about the lineage of Shem within Noah. Noah is a representation of the water, basically in the ark, which is the earth realm. And the three sons of Noah, one of which being Shem, is the Shem Yaza, which is mentioned in the book of Enoch 6:1. So you're talking about an intersectional being that has basically told these men who were on their journey how they can counteract the divine feminine, because within their own egos, instead of them humbling themselves to the mother and figuring out a way to find themselves back to themselves, they decided to resurrect an entity that will be beyond sex and polarity, beyond the feminine. This particular being would be what you call the devil. It's not Lucifer, because the word Lucifer means light bearer, okay? And this is where you get scripture that is basically inferring one thing but meaning something totally different. Lucifer is a representation of the light. It's the Luciferus, or the light bearer, basically, that brings the light of the truth, which is the mother energy, which is condensed light. The only person that's going to be able to teach you anything about the truth of the light is going to be a feminine entity, because she understands it, because it is her. So when these men went to seek out this other deity, which is the intersectionality, and went to the crossroads in order for them to resurrect this intersex being, they were seeking a way to defeat the feminine principle and to taper down or nail the circle, which is the earth experience, to a cross, so that they never have to leave. These were men who were intent on never growing up, never ascending, and a lot of them actually cannot ascend. So they were intent on finding a solution, which is this intersectionality, which was encroaching them within the middle point, which is the sin or the syntax errors. And within that point, it kind of, think about it like it sinks down like a mathematical equation. Everything that you do in a numerical sense, which is gematria, which is Kabbalah, which is everything you see around you, which is dates and names, peoples and places, which is why they say the world is a stage, because everything is about the REM, or the rapid eye movement of the dream. Basically, when you are sleeping, your eyes move back and forward because you need motion. This is the F equals MA. The force equals motion and acceleration. So when you are awake, you are moving your eyes back and forth. This is what creates the dream. And the numerical systems that you see before you are what create the reality, or the reality for this being. In order to trap the 360-degree circle of the womb and to center this particular intersectional being, they had to take these vast mathematics of the entire 360-degree, or the 9, and to chop it up, find all of this fractal light, use these demonic energies in order to teach them how to beat this feminine energy. And they created this vast web of numbers, okay, that they put before you, which is the waking dream. When you're watching television, movies, news media, everything that you see before you, there's a lot of numbers, because this is meant to shape the reality that is meant to entrap the feminine deity, or the God, or the 360-degree experience, so that man will not have to go Ouroboros and come back to himself, or even find himself. He can just stay in the center point, encroached in sin. This is what it means when you talk about the veil versus evil. It's both an anagram and a mirroring, because the devil, which is a D, which is 4, which is the actual 360-degree experience, but the 4 is also that crossroads section. So you put a D there because that's the 4. And then you put evil there because it's putting the EVIL, putting the V, which is the Vesica Pisces, or the woman's parts, in second place, and you're pinning it in with a 5 or a pentagram energy, which is actually, when you use a pentagram, you're talking about the inverted pentagram, which is the Baphomet, and the Baphomet is actually the number 2, and 2 and 5 are mirror numbers for that particular purpose. This is why Baphomet is a dual sex or intersex being, and it's seen as this goat, basically, that has both masculine and feminine principles, because it is the inverted feminine. It is not the 5 points, which is the ankh, which has an additional circle for the womb space at the top, which represents the woman. It's actually just the 4, or the intersectionality, which breaks down to the inverted 5, which is the 2, and that goes masculine and feminine all in one in the 0 point of the circle, which is the intersex being that most of these religions, which a legion is basically demons, are worshiping in the context of church and all of these different spiritual beliefs. They are censoring the masculine energy because it's about the intersectionality of being above reproach or above judgment. The Church of Set, or Satan, has a saying called solve et coagula, because that is an anagram for solve, which means to solve an equation for the ET. ET means extraterrestrial, which would be the beings who are birthed from this star system or this light when the realm was first created. And coagula is broken down into gala, which means merriment, and Mary is the mother energy, and the Cu, which is copper. Okay, and this is talking about the copper colored races, or the copper within the blood. It's talking about a specific equation that will bring you into the light, solving it through the bloodline, basically through all of these different scientific experiments using the FCC lattice structure of the elementals, which is all fractalized parts of the light body of the mother. So they take these elements and they experiment with their structures numerically. This is why when I'm teaching, I have to dabble within science. I have to dabble within anagrams and gematria and numbers and world news and movies. It's because the web that has been spun is massive, and it takes that much energy in order for you to anchor the feminine, or to nail the feminine to a cross, and to keep this 5th dimensional portal from opening, which is the woman of Revelations 12. She is nestled in Revelations 12:1 because she is a representation of the divine mother, the Isis. The 12 stars, or the crown above her head, is her throne, which is her womb space, and she gives birth to the man child that is to reset the earth, or reset the sun, to spark or bring in the light kingdom, which is the 5th dimension. And a lot of men cannot go there because they themselves are not a part of this soul energy. So solve et coagula was all about solving that equation so that some people could gain soul, which was going to be the light to usher them into the 5th dimension, or this kingdom. And also at the same time, they were resurrecting their own intersexual being so that they could worship and have the best of both worlds. Okay. So anytime you see the best of both worlds, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about being able to experience both sexes at the same time. When you talk about the masculine and feminine polarity, it is separate bodies. Okay. You're talking about negative and positive electrical currents, versus it being intersex, which is the duality, which is 2 triangles within one. Okay. And that means that you have a triangle within a triangle. That is not congruency. That is intersexuality. So this is why you have the veil versus the evil. The veil is the veil of Isis, and the veil between life and death. When you are born versus when you die, you go between the veil, which is why they say Halloween is when the veil is most thin. You're talking about a bride's veil, and the bride of Christ is basically the woman, or the womb space, and she is VEIL, versus her being evil, which is EVIL, putting the womb space, or the V, in second place to this intersectional being, which is the devil, okay, or the crossroads being, which is the D, okay. Halloween, which is October 31st, is 131, and the reason why they paint that holiday as evil is because, yes, it is the time where we go into the fall. It is when the veil is most thin, and the veil is a representation of Isis, which is the steps between life and death. So they painted this as evil, or as Jason, and Jason is just J in July, August, September, October, November, which is the summer months before you get to the fall, or the actual fall. And the fall is after the summer, okay, which is the summerland of Inanna. And it's talking about Sumer, or Sumerians, basically, or these light beings who come from the Sirius AB dog star. And you're talking about the light mapping, which gives them soul, okay? So they are the golden children who have soul. The story of the 2 witnesses is supposed to be the completion of that Ouroboros moment for the masculine. He finds his feminine counterpart that he originally started the story with, or was originally incarnated into this earth realm with, so he can bring in the man child, which is supposed to be the completion of the masculine, or the equation being solved. And the entire plot line was to keep this child from being born in order to reset the sun, as well as bring the man back to himself. So this is both a love story, and it's also a reset story, which brings us into the 5th dimension of light. And this woman who represents Isis is the mother who's going to bring this son in, and the man who finds her is her twin soul, or her twin flame, because they are 2 bodies with the same photon light energy, just split into two polarities. So in the end, there is going to be one man, okay, out of all of the men on earth that sought God or the feminine deity with his everything to find her, so that he could bring this man child into fruition, which is going to be the perfection or the new masculine, basically, or a new race of male beings, and the completion of the Ouroboros, which is completing the feminine circle of the 360 degree of time, and birthing the new fifth dimension, which is the mother or the womb or the Ankh dimension that brings in this new kingdom. Through the act of sexual intercourse, they themselves are going to birth a new part of the mathematical equation. By bringing in this new photon light being, or this sun that has never existed, he's going to usher in the new sun, which is going to reset the earth realm, and is going to birth this new perfected male who is a reinforced Y chromosome. And you have these other group of beings that were using fractal light or light equations to basically simulate a new type of reality where the earth itself didn't collapse or reset, and they could live perpetually in the material realm. Okay, so this man coming back to his twin or his twin flame is going to be the one to usher us into this new earth through sexual intercourse with the divine feminine, and that is what's going to create the new earth. It's going to be both of them together in order for them to get this all done. This is why a lot of the orchestration on the world stage is set to rip apart the masculine and feminine polarity. There's a huge divide between men and women for this purpose. A lot of it is purpose. A lot of people have chosen sides, and they are orchestrating this from other perspectives, or they have contracts or agreements in order to keep the masculine and feminine at bay, because they themselves are also worshipers of the intersexual being. So their job is to go out and defeat the feminine principle. So you have a lot of horror stories because of that reason, because a lot of these men have already pledged allegiance. This is the true red pill, blue pill. The only real pill is the green pill, which is the heart chakra, which is the green energy, which is the midpoint. It's the eye of the needle, which is love, which is Venus, which is the fourth commandment, which is the mother goddess who everything is created and patterned after. There is a distinct reason why this movement is created called a red pill. You're talking about the red pill, which is the root chakra, which is the anxiety, is the fight or flight, is the fear mechanisms. It is the lust, it's blood, it's red, which is why they have February 14th as Valentine's Day using the color red. It's because it is the lowest form of energy that you can use. When you use the intellect of the crown chakra, which is the white wavelength energy, and you combine that with the other spectrums within the light body and lighten your frequency, you become like a unicorn based type color. So it's not about the red or the blue pill, which is the throat, which is just speaking and using your ego and creating a new existence through gematria and numbers and creating the reality that you want. It's about finding mother, which is the green energy of the heart chakra of Mayat, okay, which is where the throne or the emerald throne of God is, as depicted in Revelations 4. This is why you have Democrats versus Republicans, left versus right, Coke and Pepsi, and all of these red and blue different symbologies, because it's about that polarity, and that polarity in and of itself is not truth. In order for you to be able to elevate yourself, you have to find your way to the heart chakra, which is the green energy, and that energy can only be found through the intellect of the crown, which is the third eye, which is the purple, the white energy of the crown, and then through the breath of the Holy Spirit, okay, which is what I do. I teach because I have found my way to the green energy and the white energy, and I'm speaking from a place of experience and knowledge and wisdom in order to teach what it is that I do. And that's the only way you're going to be able to ascend into the fifth dimension. Not through the red pill, not through the blue pill, but through the green pill of love, which is the heart chakra. This is the true meaning of the earth simulation. Again, it is nothing but a math equation. It is both material and physical. It is mathematical geometry all at the same time, because everything is ones and zeros. We're talking about a circle. We're talking about all of the intersections of that circle that create time, that create the masculine and feminine polarity, and all that is in between. And you have a group of people that didn't want to go through the ascension process or couldn't. So they're trying to figure out a way to entrap that circle and keep or take over that circle, which is the earth realm. This is why when they say, oh, you go to make a deal with the devil, you go to the crossroads. And you have all these people that have followed that crossroads out to the midpoint to find this particular entity, to pray to it and make a deal with the devil, right? And the only thing that they are not understanding is that all of this fractal light always belong to the divine mother. It is all part of her. So you going out to that point is basically anchoring yourself within the abyss. And every negative equation that you do in gematria or numerical values to manipulate the source code, which is the math, you're basically anchoring yourself in the middle with that devil and that particular entity that's going to take you down into the abyss or the bottomless pit. Because the more negative energy that you enact or the things that you do in sorcery, you are falling within this particular point or the web, which is going to be eternal damnation. So all of these inverted men and women who are presenting themselves before you as one thing and when they're really the other have made a deal. This is the whole reason behind the secrecy of inversion. And they say, well, they're all inverted when you're looking on the world stage. It's because of this reason alone. They have all made a deal with the devil. They've all gone to the crossroads or the intersexuality of this being. And they have made a deal to flip-flop both so that they could worship this particular entity. And what they're doing is creating a negative mathematical equation that's going to spiral them all down. And that entity is basically taking their souls with them when that entity gets locked into the abyss or the 0 point in the middle of the crossroads, which is where it is going. This is what we call the bottomless pit, okay? And the bottomless pit is going to drag every single one of those people into it that crawled out into the middle of that crossroads. I hope you enjoyed this message. Please like, share, and subscribe, and put a comment down in the comments just to let me know what you think of this content overall. Keep shining bright. Peace, love, and light.